So what we are going to do is develop a simple application which is Airbnb clone. Why I chose the Airbnb? Because this is very popular application or popular website from where you can book the hotel rooms and your travel stays. So what I'm going to demonstrate through this clone is that your application is going to have certain premium features and that you can basically toggle based on this UI what you have accessible here. So as you can see, this application is running here on the 4200, which is Angular application. I have the features here, bunch of the features, and I can control like which feature should be accessible to which role or to which user from this UI. And based on this, then my user would be able to see this or access this. Before that, quick reminder, if you are not subscribed to my channel, please do consider subscribing to my channel because that gives me a real motivation to do the similar challenging kind of stuff in the future. And it cheers me a lot. So what we are going to do here in this example is I have this simple screen where I have the different feature listed here, and I'm basically deciding their visibility, their accessibility, depending on these flags what I have here, which are just nothing but toggles. I have advanced search, I have property listing, and I have user reviews. Let's say if I like enable the advanced search and then try to like access that here in the route. So if I say advanced search here, advanced search, I can like say that advanced search works. That means like I have access to this route. But what if I give the user reviews instead of the advanced search? Try to access it, it doesn't work. It is basically navigating me back to the home. And that's the whole idea of this example. What I want to demonstrate here is you will have a screen. From that you can control which routes or which particular section. It's not just limited to a route or the page. Okay, it is in general a holistic approach that would basically teach you that how you can control the access to a certain pieces of your application depending on a data. So it's completely data driven, and this data is entirely getting stored in the backend. So I also have a running a backend that is exposing the express services, REST API, simple REST APIs, and that is in the form of the JSON server. So I just have my database here in the db.json. It's a very lightweight and very simple example. That's why I choose a simple JSON file to store my data and everything there. But like it's completely data driven. That's what I want to emphasize here. And as usual, all of my source code is present on my GitHub repository. So you can come here and clone this repository. As I'm saying, this is a production ready demonstration of the feature guarding application for your modern front-end application. All right, so let's start from the scratch. So first I'm going to create the project directory. So make directory feature guarding demo. This is what I want to give it a name. Then I would just cd into the feature guarding demo, and then I would create the two directories basically over here. So first one I'm going to call it a make directory Airbnb app, or what I can do is I can like just simply create the Angular new project. So I can use the ng new Airbnb app. For that I need to create an Angular project. Okay, this is the first thing. And the second thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the backend. So for that also I can like to make directory Airbnb server, and this will create a server for me. Okay, so let me execute this command, and then we will have a project over here. So I have my front end and back end code ready. Actually, I have a server and I have a Airbnb app, which is the Angular application. So I don't have much stuff here. Okay, so I would start with the database, and in our case, the database is db.json. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna just create one sample feature here. So that feature basically correspond to a role. So how I'm storing data here is I'm gonna basically have a roles, and then the features corresponding to a roles. I'm not gonna have a user directly corresponding to a features, because I think that makes the user and the features tightly coupled, and that's not an ideal way in like handling the data. I think the entity relation should be handled in a way that you have more flexibility and it's more decoupled, and it should be adaptable to the changes that you make in the future. So I think for that reason I'm going to have a role, and the role will correspond to the features, and then users is going to have a certain role, so that you can add or remove the users very easily from the role, or you can add or remove the features to the role. I have the server TS. So what I'm going to do in the server TS is I'm going to spin up a simple JSON server. So those of you who don't know what is a JSON server, it's a simple npm package that helps to spin up the backend server, to spin up the CRUD API, create, read, update, delete APIs, REST APIs on a simple any object that you want, any JSON object you want. You can like spin up that very fast within like 1 minute, and all the data basically resides in a JSON file. You don't have to like connect with the actual data like a MySQL, Postgres, Mongo, or whatever. You don't have to like connect it to actual database. So what I'm gonna do here in the server TS is import the JSON server. Of course, I need that, and then path, and then I am basically initializing the server using this, invoking the create method on the JSON server, and then I would have a server instance, and then I need a router so that I can decide like on which path I want to uh, add which API input and how to handle the incoming request. This is my current directory, and then db.json is my database file, as you can see here. And then I have the middleware, so I'm using the JSON server's defaults because this helps me to like just set up the things which JSON server by default out of the box provides. So, and I'm going to run it on the port number 3000, and then I'm gonna basically just use the server use server and server use router. That's it. And then I'm gonna have a JSON server listening on the localhost port like this, just a simple information message so that I get to know that it is working. And if you see, like, this code is very clean. Actually, it's pretty much clean. I don't have any specific routes mentioned for the create, update, delete. I don't have those things. I just have like a simple middleware setup here on the line number 9, and this line internally actually takes care of like whether I have create, update, delete. All those endpoints are basically internally provided by the JSON server, so I don't have to like write them on my own. That's the beauty of the JSON server. And then I'm going to just spin up this, so I'm gonna do a npm start, and this would basically run it on the local host 3000. If I copy this and take you to my Arc browser, and there if I open it, you should be able to see that you have a JSON server, and it automatically reads that from the db.json. We never provided the schema for the features. Like, we never told a JSON server that I'm going to have an entity or the object called feature inside, and I'm going to have these things. So it automatically reads that, and it is capable of reading the entire structure of the db.json, the objects in the db.json, and like derive out that what properties it has. And then it's going to like give an information that what kind of APIs that you can perform. So I can perform a get request, I can perform post, put, patch, delete options. All right, so I have application set there, and the first thing I'm going to do in this Angular application is to configure the routes. Now I am showing this thing in Angular, but I'm 100% confident that this thing is present in all modern frameworks. So auth routes, or the auth guarding is present in all the frameworks, so you can achieve it in any framework. Okay, so like, so don't tell me that I'm biased towards the Angular. I'm not here to be tell like Angular is the best framework. By watching all of my videos, you should have figured out that by now. So the first thing I'm going to do is in the routes, I'm going to put the feature for the path for the feature component, for the advanced search, for the property list of random features that my Airbnb application has to provide. And what I'm going to do is like on each of these path, I'm going to specify which component to use. And there is, if you see, I have a guard called can activate, and then there is a feature guard service that I'm going to create, which is going to hold a logic that on what condition whether to render this route or not. If you're not aware of like what this can activate does or what is the auth guard, then I highly recommend to watch my video which I made long back, which actually where I explain the all the types of the guards in Angular very detailed. Or it's in general, if you're interested in knowing the guards concept in any front-end framework, I highly recommend you watch that video. So what I will do is I will simply create these three components in my application. And there we go. I created those component. I have advanced search, and I don't have any stuff here. I just like kept a simple line advanced search work. This is simple route that I want to demonstrate. I have feature settings. This is the important part. I'll come to this component later because I want to explain it neatly. Then I have a property listing, which is again nothing but a simple route, and then user review, which is again nothing but like a simple uh, page where I'm just showing one line text. Okay, now coming to the important part, feature settings. So in feature setting, what I'm doing is this is my UI for the toggle layout that I showed in the start of this video. So I have the feature settings, toggle feature setting, toggle list here. So all the feature that I'm going to fetch from my backend, from all the feature that I'm going to fetch from my server, I'm going to basically show them here, and user can basically toggle them on or off depending on what is the state of it. And then I'm going to save it. So if I go to the save feature in the component, I wrote the save feature, which is doing nothing but the method which internally calls the HTTP post of my JSON server, and then get features, which is basically to get like what are the features that I have. So if you see, I have this service here for the can activate. This is actually pointing to this feature guard service what I have here. So now I want to explain this thing in a very well manner. So this is the service which is responsible to decide like whether the particular route should be activated or not. Okay, so can activity is doing that for us. And in this feature guard service, as you can see, it is implementing can activate and can activate child guard. So this is a deprecator. Actually, Angular doesn't recommend to use it. Then you might be wondering why I'm using it. Let me justify that. Okay, so the most up-to-date way to do this is using the resolve type of guard, because with the resolve you can like achieve all those kind of things. The can activate and the can activate childs are have been there in the Angular since long, and many people are aware of it. And why I'm using them here in this example, because I find them very intuitive. Can activate and can activate child, by its name it indicates that what purpose it is serving. Can activate would help you to decide whether to activate certain route or not. With can activate child you can decide like whether to activate the it's underneath childs and it's underneath child in the component or not. So because for that reason, since it's very intuitive to read, and it would give a clear understanding to the viewers that what exactly I'm trying to do with. What I'm saying here is, if the current feature that I got from the route data, if it is a part of the enable features for this particular role, that means the user can access this particular thing. Basically they can activate would return true. And there's another service, if you see just adjacent to it, which is actually feature setting service. This service is responsible for like getting the data of the features that I have with my JSON server, getting the list of all the features, and then saving the features and deleting the features. Now you might be wondering like why I need a delete feature over here. Okay, because what UI I showed here, I have the list of features that you can enable or disable. You can like update the features that you have there. You can like create a new if nothing is there. But where does exactly a delete comes here? The reason is I am doing an update in a different way. I'm not doing a delete update here. The way I'm updating the features is I'm doing a two-step operation. First I'm finding out which is the record, or the which is the set of features that I want to update. Once I find that, I'm basically deleting that entire record. Let's say I have a premium user, and for that I have a bunch of features. I'm finding out the row for the premium user, I'm deleting that entire row, and then I'm inserting a new row. And the obvious question that will come to your mind, like why the heck I'm doing in this way. And my reason and my justification is that I'm not using actual database. What I'm using is a simple db.json. And in order to maintain the consistency, I think this is the most safest way, that if I have to update the data in the file, what I would do is I would find out a certain row, I would delete that and insert a new. That's the most reliable way, because updating the exact lines on this file, it is actually more complicated, and it's not only complicated but it's not that reliable. That's why I'm following this approach. But with actual database I don't recommend this way. With actual database you have access to the update queries and a bunch of other stuffs with the ORM. You can do that in a multiple way, so you don't have to like do this hack. It's just for my example, like I have a very lightweight setup here. Okay, sorry, localhost. So 4200 3000 is my port, and if I do a refresh, I got advanced search enabled here. And if I do an advanced search over here, okay, so advanced search, I should be able to see that, and it basically allowing me to see this particular route. So I can like see that. If I go back and like change the advanced search to like disable it and save the feature, and then again update it to the advanced feature and try to access, this time it should navigate me to the uh, home, because that's how I configure it. If the route doesn't work or route doesn't have permission, then it would navigate me to the home. Okay, so I want to show you like what exactly is happening when I do these operations. So I'll inspect it, and in the network I'll show you what exactly happens. So when I do a refresh and just put the filter on the XI chart things. So what is happening is, first time I'm getting all the features which are for this role. So in the payload I'm passing that role is premium user and ID is 1. Okay, and then in the response I get like what is the role for this. Okay, now if I like edit this and save it, what I'm doing is, as I said, I'm doing a two-step operation. First I'm deleting the that particular premium role specific features, and then I'm inserting a new object. In that way I achieve the update. So with this time update, as you can see that I'm posting a new, I'm passing a payload that the advanced search is true. So this entire thing is flag based. Actually the advanced search is true or false, that means like particular feature is enabled or no. So although those features are basically flag based, the data is stored in the boolean format, so I can like get to know whether it's enabled or not in or disabled based on these boolean flags. And then I update it, and data is still there. Now if I refresh it, it's still going to be there. So if I like enable something different this time and save it, it's saved, and I can like do a refresh and data is basically persisted there. Okay, so in the code, this is the part which is responsible for that check feature state. Inside that I have a yeah, check feature state is the actual base condition where I basically load the features, and then I check whether the current page which user is trying to access, whether it is a part of our old features or not. Then I return the true or false. Okay, and then can activate child and the can activate, these are just a wrapper around that base condition which will basically return true or false. And all of this happen when user basically hit this endpoint. Okay, so I want to emphasize on the important point. In this example I showed like a page based access control. That means like I'm considering the features or the mapping features to the pages. Okay, one page equals to one feature, but that doesn't mean that it's limited to only a page, or it would just work with a page or the routes. It is in general, it is inherently capable of like achieving this at any level. That means I don't need to like rely on the route based approach. I can have like anything there, achieve this access control on the individual elements. Let's say I have a header, footer on the main body or the left area or the right area. I can like decide to have an access to the certain element in the DOM or the certain component based on whether it has a certain access or not, and that would be completely independent of what is the route there. I think this worked pretty well. The main advantage you have is you get more fine control over here. Like you can put the guard on any component. So in the app route, so you can see that what you have to do is like anytime you develop any new feature, you just have to put a can activate and then feature guard service. And this is very common logic, like you don't specify any fancy thing. This is like a feature guard service. That means that if the certain element is part of a feature enable feature, it is going to render. If it is not, then it is not going to render. And all of this is a data driven. One thing that I can still enhance in this application, and which I highly recommend you do for the production purposes, is this data. What I have here is nothing but the identifier for my component. So what I can do is like instead of keeping this property listing or whatever identifier for my page or the feature or my component, I can like keep that as well in my database and retrieve that at a runtime in the database. Or what I can do is like keep a mapping somewhere in one file. That mapping would be responsible for like deciding what is the component and what is the identifier of it. In that way I don't have to write the identifier hard coded in the code, and I would have that specified somewhere in the file. So that becomes more decoupled. I can change the file content and I don't have to compile the whole code. With this approach I have to compile the whole code whenever I do a change in the identifier. So that's it for this video. My intention was to showcase a simple strategy of the feature guarding that you see very common in many application nowadays, but the underlying principle is very simple, that you can use using the framework provided constructs like the auth guarding, route protection. So that's it. I hope you like this video, and in any way if this video is adding any value to you, then again subscribing to my channel is a really great way to show us support. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.